great or safe, is it?
Yeah.
With a road? Okay.
How's things going? All good?
Yeah, yep.
Did all those questions get answered? Get sent?
I think so, yeah. I just circle out one because I don't think it should be on there to approve until no more, unless there's money set aside if it doesn't, donation doesn't get approved.
Oh,
Money's budgeted for that otherwise.
I don't know what's in there. I would hope so. But, can you manage to?
My fault. Oh, I live in Boston, I gotta go.
Very good. All right, we're going to get started. Thank you for being here tonight. We will start by, having, Pastor Seager does the prayer and the pledge of allegiance.
That's right. Well, again, we just thank you for your love and your grace. Continue to work in all our hearts. Continue to give our minds wisdom and guidance towards your ways. Lord, I pray that you continue to protect our village, give leaders of our village wisdom and guidance to follow you, to have some peace and some confidence. Lord, continue to light the way for us all. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, Cheryl.
Here.
Here.
Approval of the January 1st regular council meeting minutes.
January 5th, actually. This is the first. Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Roll call.
One quick question, is it elected or appointed for the new? It says newly elected in the minutes. Whether appointed or not, elected by the voters.
We're appointed by, well, we're kind of voted
I
in
know
by
that
the
matters.
council, right?
So two newly elected and one re-elected. They weren't elected.
The two, Brian and Tony were elected. And I believe Boyer would be appointed. So.
Brian and Mike were.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tony was there.
Remember that.
Because it matters on terms. If they were newly elected, they would have a 4-year term, but since they're appointed, they got a 2-year term.
2 year term. Well, that was through the state, how the state.
That's why I didn't know if it needed to be worded
Or
accordingly.
we can change the word either way, so. To make a note of that, I think motion through, so roll call.
Look down, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph. Where Boyer accepted seat for 2 years. And something other than that,
No, it's the second paragraph where it says the swearing in of two newly elected. I know that the elected should have been appointed.
because should we did her afterwards.
Okay.
One was appointed. Right.
Okay.
Ready for the vote?
Roll call.
Okay. Egley? Yes. Conway?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
Siedek?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Valena?
Yes.
You got, bills listed in your packet to look at, go over, or to ask questions on?
I know I asked Corey some questions earlier today. The one on the second page, the fourth one down, I wasn't sure. There's prepayment for half the fireworks for the summer celebration. I know there's funds budgeted for that. I know the years past it came from donations, but the no donating company hasn't even had a meeting yet to discuss if they're donating, so
all of the donations, there's
Yeah.
none left.
There was some left over, and that's none of, the city or the village doesn't use any tax dollars for that festival, so it's all through private donations and from the community, so.
So there's enough money to pay all that?
Cheryl had enough to pay the down payment to lock them in for that date, so, yeah. We can still change the program, I reached out to them, and if we wanna change anything with the fireworks display, we can, so. We're just starting to roll with that committee and stuff, and asking for donations and things, so, yeah.
Cheryl, what was this Muni League LLC annual agreement?
That's for the utility software, utility billing software.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Roll call?
Milana,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Conway,
Yes.
Sirdike,
Yes.
Egley.
Yes.
There were no boards and commissions that have met. We're actually still working on obtaining some more board members on some of the subcommittees, CRA, I think zoning. So we had several that turned out, so we always reach out to them to see if they're willing to reapply or re-sit on those boards. Some of them said no, but we're about down to 2 more people to replace, so working on that presently. Next, we have council committee reports, the streetlight property committee meeting.
Yeah, Streetlight Property met, Justin Kuhn had a request for some land around a building that he recently purchased. I do have lovely maps, if anyone would like to look at them, feel free to take one of these. The committee voted 3-0 in favor of the land being gifted pending that it's legal. Avery, I'm not sure, I've kind of understood sometimes that land has to be auctioned off, but if it's a business, then it can go into the CIC, so I would like you to look into that first and confirm. We've had other entities in the village ask for land before, and we've told them that it needed to be auctioned, so I wanted to make sure that we were doing this legally. And then also pending that he would pay the legal fees.
I think you're still working on the parameters, the amount of land, different areas down there too, with,
Yep.
being under construction at the present time, so.
Yeah,
I
there's
had
still
asked,
a lot of details around how
Right.
much land and what he needs.
You wanna see it?
No, it's not.
You shall see.
Yeah, it was just that one. So that one, is a drawing for parking. The other one's kind of pointing out what the drive-through, he would like to put a drive-through around the building. He also is kind of looking ahead and knowing that there's a lot of interest in this, so he's looking at possibly, some more additional parking for that. If you wanted to see that drawing as well.
But with that, we asked, I think Brian reached out to me to get with Justin, to talk about parameters, kind of what we're looking at, property. Corey had some other ideas down there too, with that lift station, as a water, what do you call it?
Bulk water
Plan
system.
for people to fill up, I guess, tank, fire trucks, if, right, maybe pools, that kind of thing. So we wanted the logistics of the parking lot and the drive-through and the depth, the width of everything. The depth's the depth, you got a train track behind it or in front of it, so. I was actually, Brian called me later this afternoon to get with you and have a meeting and sit down and go over everything, so.
Do you know how many feet you're looking for, like from your building out to the west. In the committee meeting, I thought, the one that talked about going to the second pole, the telephone pole, which I've measured off a bunch of different scenarios there. I think that was 150 feet, 100 feet would be fine. I would say no less than 100 feet, because I think by the time cars and stuff park over there, and you have to drive through to go around the back of the building and come out on the Hicksville Auto Recycler side, I don't know what the side that is, but come in on the Marathon Oil side and go out on the Hicksville Auto Recycler side behind the building. I'm going to redo the whole building. I was working with my engineer on getting new prints to design the inside, and I wanted to move the kitchen to the back, put a drive-up window in.
Corey, how much space would you need if there was some sort of fill station there?
The plans for the fill station, we're gonna go where that little white building used to be.
Okay,
So we're looking, to come off of Defiance Avenue and roughly between 80 to 100 feet for that drive. But our new infrastructure starts at about 120 feet from the side of Charlie's heading west. That's where our underground infrastructure starts along 18, cuts, back towards the lift station. That's my only fear, is if the parking lot was to go over top of that new sewer main that's there that feeds that lift station, if we ever had to get into it. If we would need to draw up something, say it becomes a parking lot, we have to draw up some type of legal easement for us to get into that.
No, we have those kind of situations all over town with water lines and everything else where you have pre-agreements where you can have a certain, like a driveway or, but at some point in time it might be tore up in case you need to.
Sure.
So,
I mean, in the utility right of ways, yes, but if it goes back, how far back are you looking to go off the road?
Well, it only goes to the railroad track.
So you'd go all the way back to the tracks there?
Yeah, I think if not, it just creates a little sliver piece that's a headache. Is the utilities that parking lot would be over, are those new utilities?
Yeah. recently,
So that lasts 30 years?
Hopefully, should.
So they shouldn't be, the parking lot shouldn't need dug up anytime soon?
Any questions for these guys? So, we'll look at some logistics and bring back to the table later about the property and how it can be handled. Like a plan. Maybe we can check in on that and we'll have a meeting and look at some, measurements and everything. Administrator's report.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Avery.
First reading of resolution 2026-01 by caption only to support the Ohio Commission for the United States semi-quincentennial and declaring an emergency.
Make a motion to suspend the rules.
is this just showing our support, or they want
Pretty much.
financial?
Well, they don't want money. I think there might be some grant money involved in it. There's some committees set up around the country, different states, where they're helping with marketing and different things like that for the, events and celebrating the 250th. So the state came out with this showing support to the United States that, Ohio and all its communities are in support of, honoring and, celebrating that festival, so, that time, so.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Siedek,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Colonna,
Yes.
Miller, Conwood,
Yes.
Egley.
Yes.
Second and final reading of resolution 2026-01 to support the Ohio Commission for the United States semi-quincentennial.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Egley,
Yes.
Conwood,
Yes.
Colonna,
Yes.
Miller, Siedek,
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
Just one thing for Avery, the food truck question,
I sent.
Mhm.
Just go through Brian, since he's head of that committee.
Okay.
Alright, that's only type of resolutions or legal things we had tonight. Department heads, Chief Denny? Alright, thank you, Chief. Fire EMS chief, sounds like they're out, so we have some firemen here this evening representing the fire department. You guys have
Do I need to stand over here?
Get over.
So I'm Tim, the fire department. I brought the paperwork for our Quint. I got Cody here with us, part of the committee, Brandon and Blake. So hopefully, providing you with this information, you'll be able to get this Quint here to protect our village better. So we have the opportunity to be able to sign this contract for this Quint by 2/4. They'll be able to save us $24,000. Yeah, it's got 18 to 22 month build time. We got $20,000 of equipment allowances on it. And when we get the equipment, it'll all be NFPA compliant as well. So when it rolls in the door, it'll be ready to go. We met with 3 different equipment people from Sutphin. This is who we're talking to right now to get the truck from. We met with E1 and Pierce, and this is who we feel is gonna be our best option to go with for our village. In the last page, we have the differences for discounts that they'll give us. So whatever money you wanna pay them down up front, they can give you different numbers as well. So, yeah. Any other?
My questions to the prior finance committee. You guys aren't planning on spending any money till 2026 or 7. I don't think we got money in the budget now to be doing anything, do we?
We don't have to pay now until once you get the truck. So once the truck delivers is when you pay.
You can just save a
These-
bunch of money if you pay
Yeah,
now.
these numbers are what you can pay up front if you'd like to save those large amounts. These aren't even guaranteed numbers, like he can come up with other numbers as well. So if you want to pay, $100,000, he can give you a number of a discount for that range as well.
Well, when's the prepayment due, I guess is what I'm asking.
30 days after the signing, or you don't have to pay, I'm pretty sure, well, you don't have to pay anything until you sign, like, to get the truck.
Okay, well, no, I just wanna make sure there wasn't gonna be a.
Yeah, no, so you sign the contract,
There is when we sign the contract.
yeah.
So if we sign the contract by 2/4, we save $24,000.
Yep.
If we pay for it all up front, we save $132,000, I believe it is, off the total price of the truck.
Yeah, $132,000.
Right now, the truck is right around $1.9 million.
I just wanna make sure we weren't gonna have a
Absolutely.
problem.
So,
That's the only reason I brought it
If the
up.
money's available to pay it up front, makes a lot of sense to save
You pay on
a lot of
delivery.
money. If we don't wanna spend all of it up front, we can do a partial down. They require a certain amount, but you can overpay that, and that's where on that last page, he broke it down with 4 different
Yeah, those are,
amounts, depending on how much we put down,
yeah, those are,
there's more discount. Obviously, the more you put down, the more of a discount you would get. So those are just options. Like I said, your best bang for buck, if the money's there, is you just pay it all up front and you save $130,000.
So
If
is
not-
option 1, is that the minimum that you have to prepay?
you don't have to, no, he can give you any number you
Yeah.
want.
Oh, okay.
So,
Those are
yeah,
just numbers that he just kind of put in there just to give some sort of numbers to
Yeah,
everything.
these are just random options that he gave us, but so say you could give a specific number that you'd like to prepay, he can give you that discount option there. But this is just stuff that he just went ahead and gave me real quick, cause I wasn't sure, if you guys were interested in something like this at all. But, so the first amount that he gave us, and then if you gave the 24,000 discount, if you signed by 2/4, but we would also like to get the 600-gallon tank, which would be an extra $18,000, cause right now, the way the truck sits, it's at 400 gallons of water. And we would like to have a bigger tank on it, so that would add an extra $18,000. That wasn't on the original quote.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even though 1.9's coming in higher than what was initially discussed.
Yeah, but, I mean, that was a year ago, year and a half.
Right, I was in
We've
meeting.
had 8% inflation, you know, beforehand.
Well, right, but
Stuff's-
even when he was giving us those numbers, he was accounting for that.
Agree. So like, one thing that we were looking at, we had some where we're going up to, I mean, some of them are at 1.9, and then if we went with another truck of what we have with a bucket, it's another extra 300,000. So, this truck here doesn't have a bucket on it, it's gonna be just a stick. So we're not gonna have it'll just be the ladder.
So
That's what you
the,
guys have currently, right?
No, we have a bucket on
It
it.
does have the bucket on it?
So we've already dropped 300,000 off of it, just by getting rid of that.
and that last picture that's on there of the fire truck is pretty similar to what we would get. There's gonna be a couple differences, but that kind of gives you a ballpark picture of what it's gonna look like.
So our current tower is also made by Sutphen, so it's a company that truck's 40 years old, a little over 40 years old. So, you know, the quality is definitely there.
And they got a 30-year warranty on their aerial unit itself.
Versus the other companies are only at 20 years. That and with us already having this truck and it being 40 years old and, I mean, it's still in service and good to go. We know that this new truck would also last another 40 plus years.
I mean, the way that I read this though, that the prepayment, in order to get the $132,000 off, we would have to owe all of that within 30 days of 2/4. We definitely did not budget that for this year.
Well, I mean, it'd be whatever you could.
Yes,
pay.
in order to get that maximum discount,
Right,
you'd have 30 days from
right.
2/4 to make that
I mean, I don't know that
payment in full.
that's an option right now.
Oh, but that doesn't mean you have to.
Right.
You know.
But if those numbers are still good, if we don't sign by 2/4, you lose $24,000.
Yeah, the 24 is.
If we wait until, wait another couple months to get that process through, you lost $24,000.
Cheryl, do you want this to go through finance
It
committee?
needs to go through me first, I haven't seen any of that. I've only had a discussion with them.
Okay, yes, definitely show Cheryl the numbers.
You know why the loss of the 24,000, say we don't sign till 3/4? What's the difference?
It's just that.
It's an incentive to get us to sign.
It's the interest on the money.
It's
If they knock 130,000 off, they're borrowing the money to build the thing, and they're gonna use your money to build it. So if they'll knock that off, you can probably negotiate that out of them.
You got anything else to add? I'd like to add something. So I'm Cody Sanders, more new faces here, captain of the Hicksville Fire Department. One thing that came across this truck being the winner out of all the other ones we checked out is this is an Ohio-made truck. Okay, this company has been around since 1920.
Since 1890, they've been family owned.
1890, family owned. The representative is actually the grandson of the founder. He knew everything head to toe of this truck. He was able to answer every question right on the spot. The truck being built in Ohio, everything from start to finish built in Ohio. It is a one-stop shop for parts, service. We go right there. We don't have to check with 4 different other companies. Everybody else is like, yeah, we have a road crew this, or you can go to a normal truck shop to get parts and this and that. So this eliminates all that headache. So our next 30 years plus of having this truck, we go right there to their shop. They have every part in inventory that we ever need. They have a valet service that if we have an out of service repair that's needed, where the truck can't operate at the fire scene, they will come and pick it up that same day or within 24 hours, get it to their shop, get it fixed and get it back. And they have the quickest turnaround to get it back in service. This truck is also capable of being a first due engine. So right now we have 503 and the tower will be going out of service when this comes in. So if anything happens to our main pumper, this will fill that void while that is out of service. It could take us priority number one truck right out the gate if we need to. You know, so they were by far the most knowledgeable, and one other company was, they build the trucks in Florida, and then have other service companies taking care of the truck. For us, that's not realistic. The Pierce brand is made in Wisconsin. They also have different service companies to where it'd be a headache if we have, it could be, not saying that it would, but it could present a headache for any chiefs or future chiefs to service the vehicle. So with this, I know whenever I choose to leave the fire department for 30 years from now, I can still look back and be proud to have this truck in our bay. So, and, they're looking forward to having us, you know, our business, and I think this is by far the best choice that we were given. So,
One more question, cause this goes back 3 fire chiefs, so I don't know if any of you were around, so I'm not being negative against fire department. There gonna be any more change orders?
what do you mean?
Well, guess the $18,000 tank's already an add-on.
Well, he
This was-
gave us that 3 different options on that, so he sent us the 400, and then he gave us a 500 option value on there, and then a $600 option. So the $500 option would have added $23,000 to it, but then a 600 gallon option adds 18,000, but we lose storage space. So that's why we were kind of finagling which route we wanted to go.
To answer your question, Kent, no. We've put the time into making sure
Okay.
this is the exact truck.
Well, see,
It's spec'd everything out exactly what we want.
that was supposed to have happened before, so I've had some experience with that. If you guys are sure that's what you're getting, and you don't come back 3 months, oh, we forgot they had 2 wheels or something stupid, I'm just making
Right.
that up. And it's gonna be another $150,000 or
Yeah.
whatever.
And this is why we chose the custom build to where we can have everything in the quote that we need, and we're ready to roll when we get it.
We also have tool allowance in there, so it's coming, like Timmy said, as soon as it rolls into the doors over here, it is 100% ready to go with every tool on there that we'll need on the fire ground.
I had a question, training for this piece of equipment. I'm sure there's additional training because of the size of the truck and what it is.
So
Yeah.
they supply 3 days of training, as far as so we can get everybody trained, cause everybody's,
And have the
availability.
And have the certification for the truck. and
Yeah.
That's all part of the deal.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
I-
they'll come do the training with us, and we can have them come back later and do additional training if we, feel the need, more advanced training, things like that.
I just
Down the
remember I
road.
talked to Mickey about it, he goes, hey, if this keeps rolling, you guys are getting this truck, he said, make sure when that thing rolls in, you're all qualified,
Yeah.
licensed, certified to get going, so
Uh,
that's.
Ohio Fire Academy offers training as well,
Right,
so you can go down and get that for free
right,
to get started too.
excellent.
So they have training that way.
Good.
And they also have a, maintenance program too, that they can come up, not from the fire academy, but from Sutphen too. They can come and make sure that the truck's perfect,
Do the annual
you know,
PMs on it.
well maintained every year as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to get up and reiterate that everybody is on the same page as far as recommendation, and, you know, this will be the best option for our village. So, thank you.
Yeah, but- Thank you, gentlemen, for working on this project and putting all these numbers together and specking out the truck. We tried out with a lot of different companies and everybody has probably good ideas for you, right? Their truck's better than the other guys.
Yes.
But-
We actually went down and a few of us went down and visited Sutphen. They went through the factory. We actually went to Washington Township. They have this, pretty much the exact truck. We were able to go, set it up, use it, climb it a little bit, look, see the whole thing. Took us for a drive in it, talked to the guys that actually are on the truck all day, every day. So we got a lot of input as far as, you know, what do you like about it? What would you change about it? And we took their opinions into account as well. So that was, and then we also stopped at one other station, They had a very similar truck to this. They're gonna talk to their lieutenant and pick his brain as far as, you know, what do you like about it, what don't, what would you change, those kinds of things, so. We definitely put the time in to make sure we got exactly what we want.
For the new council people, we did obtain a grant. It wasn't for that much money.
800.
A good sized chunk of it. I know Cheryl and Derek have been working with the grant writer. We awarded it here, what, a couple months back finally. This ended up, the cash was $750.
It's like 809 after we paid Mickey.
Okay, 809. So that was for this truck. So we'll have to definitely get with Cheryl, look at the numbers, crunch everything, right? Cheryl, what's your thought out of the gate? Scary? Good? Bad? Work it out?
I told them, get everything you want on the truck up front.
Okay.
Don't come back, cause you're not getting anything else.
Right, right.
That's what happened last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
But if you know exactly, we have like 809,000, you kind of have a good idea how much you can put down, which we don't have money budget otherwise, but then we find out numbers from them on what kind of cost savings we would have.
Well, we make sure it's gonna be a 30-year truck for you, so.
Very good, thank you. Fiscal officer report.
We have the fund status report, which is, only the first month of the year, the cash summary, December revolving report. You have January police department collections and the December mayor's court. I put in the HIX-TV agenda. They only meet quarterly now instead of monthly. There's a letter from ND7 offering they do it every year to purchase our American Tower lease. And so, I don't need an official vote, but I need you to tell me if you want to discuss it. If you don't, we'll move on. And every year it's like, no. Anyway, the Hicksville Union Cemetery, both their support request, is for $32,000 we've already budgeted. They put in their cash flow report from 2025 and their budget for this year. If you have any questions, you can, email Robin, who's the clerk there. And, I have an offer to cancel for office supplies, cause, something most of you are new, that, we have a cupboard back there that has office supplies you can take if you need highlighters or notebooks or whatever. Or see April if you wanna order something that we don't have.
Has there been any discussion from the cemetery asking for more, like, 20? I just seen what their projected balance is at the end of last year, and projected at the end of this year is not good.
Well, all I'll say is at our last meeting, we raised some prices to hopefully offset that. But no, they had, and when we get to that point, I probably won't be able to discuss it anyway, if they wanna ask for more money, but that's not been mentioned at all.
So the year before, they asked us, like mid-year or something, after we set budgets, so we did it this year. It's on tonight's to, for the bills to be paid for this year, but their projections, I didn't know if they were asking for more in the future.
Not on here. I don't know about 27, but 26 is nothing extra.
All right, any questions for Cheryl? Okay, thank you. I'm gonna do my notes real quick, and then we have a special guest here, Dr. Chris Fisher, and I'll introduce you here real quick, Doc. I'll be open and talk about some, the, CMH the building opportunity, but, Boyer, Michael, Brian, and myself will be going to the new council member training. It's in Independence, Ohio. It's on March 7th. We're going as a group. Defiance County Health Department, along with Ohio Northern University, is going to bring a mobile healthcare unit to this year's Hicksville Heritage Days. That will be they're bringing it on Saturday, June 6th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're not quite sure where that unit's gonna be. They're also getting some help from ProMedica for staffing and some different things. But everything they're offering on this medical, healthcare unit is free to the public. So send out information of all the different types of screenings, checkups, they're gonna help with medication, medication, checks, all that, but it's all free, so they obtained a grant. This was kind of the first hit with, the medical units, I think it's a good opportunity for the community, to get some health assessments. Like I said, it's free, they might bring it another time during the year and get set up for people to utilize that service. So, but we thought that would be a good time for them to come with people in the town and during the festival. We're still, American Tower is still asking additional information on the Keller Industrial site. It is very frustrating. They thought they were gonna sign off, Avery and Michael Wall and Eric and myself. Thought they were gonna sign off here the last couple of weeks, the way it looked, and then had some more questions. Corey was able to obtain that information. I'm gonna have Avery draft up another letter. We talk about this every council meeting. It is very frustrating. I'd like to put a timeline on their final response. Brian's starting to ask for additional information on the industrial site. He wants to start moving. We gotta get this done. It's been too long, so, try to get that wrapped up. I know we've talked about it for many years and thought we saw some light, but we have not. Maybe with this new letter that Avery can draft up to him, we can get some finalization on it. I would just remind people during the cold spells, we ask everyone to check on their elderly neighbors. We also have local warming locations in the community, the library, the village hall, the fire station, things that are open during the day. I'm sure you can utilize the warming stations. First Church of Christ is opening up their doors this evening for people throughout the evening from 6 p.m. tonight through 9 a.m. tomorrow. If anybody needs to use those services. And then they also said that depending on the weather and the cold spells and everything, they're willing to open up a lot more often. So if people call or have an issue with a furnace or anything, or an issue with their house, we ask that they maybe reach out to the police department. The police department can call one of the deacons or the pastor at the church, and they'll open up the church immediately for somebody to take shelter and utilize that building. So I thank them for doing that for the community. And like I said, the church is in town. I know Steve's church probably opens doors for people during the day if they need it, and things of that nature. So I also want to remind residents and business owners to remove snow and ice off their sidewalks as soon as possible. I know at times they can't do it themselves, but those things happen. But we still have kids walking to school, they're walking to businesses in town, and we want to keep it safe for them to travel on our sidewalks. So that's all I have. At this time, I want to introduce Dr. Chris Fisher. Doc, you want to head to the podium?
Absolutely, not the podium, right, I get that.
Oh, you get the chair.
I get to testify at my conference. Alright, well, thank you everyone for having me. I've been, talking with Corey over the past.
By the way.
That's a big TV. No, you're not the one. Yes. Do you think it's in settings?
No, if you go to the main screen, back then, full screen.
Oh, there we go.
Step through.
That's what Corey had on in here when I walked in.
Yeah.
Choose to mute from the,
Be from a computer.
was it from the computer? Alright, you sound like a secretary.
Not really.
Alright. Okay, so like Mayor said, I am Dr. Chris Fisher. We have a Fisher Health System, that name was not random. So, I guess I have a little bit of background in here about me, just try to gain your all's confidence, cause I know right now we're in a time where there's been loss of confidence, especially with the closing of the hospital. So my background is in dermatology and emergency medicine, very, very
different background, probably the only person that you guys will ever see in your lifetime that has a background in dermatology and emergency medicine. Those two, that's like oil and water. So I've got 7 years of resurrecting rural and critical access hospitals, holding various roles, chief of staff, CMO type roles, director roles, in addition to being a physician that actually services them. So I know about critical access and rural hospitals from both the provider perspective as well as from the business perspective. It's very, very infrequent that you encounter that combination, because typically physicians stick to providing care or administrators stick to business. But I quickly recognized the value and the importance of being able to bridge those two gaps. So 5 years of direct hospital leadership practice, business leadership as well. I do have endeavors outside of medicine, and that's kind of just strengthened that component of what we do, as far as bolstering business of medicine and care that's delivered. I'm only 34 years old, so I can't have that much, I can't put 20 years of experience up here, because that would mean that I was in middle school when I went to medical school. But in my short time being a physician and then being a leader within medicine, we've kind of escalated to this position where we're managing facilities, we're managing our large physician practice, and then providing insight and guidance. So our overall focus for Fisher Health System is the focus on healthcare integration and coordination of care. So the best way that I put this is, we have a large acute care facility that we're doing ground up construction for in Central Valley in California. The vision for that hospital came from looking at the community first and then going, okay, how is healthcare here start with healthcare in the hospital? So typically people go, okay, I'm gonna start a hospital and then healthcare will trickle out to the community. What my perspective is, okay, I see healthcare in the community and I wanna see where that came from and work backwards to the hospital. And so that's when we catch our healthcare disparities, when we think about healthcare in essentially a reverse manner. And so we have a large emphasis on long-term care facilities, home health, what happens after you discharge from the facility, et cetera. So kind of a brief overview. All right, so the hospital in general, right now, so prior to closing, Community Memorial Hospital was designated critical access. That may not be achievable upon reopening. Whenever you close a facility, lose a license, and then have to reapply for one, you are subject to scrutiny again from CMS and other credentialing and certifying bodies in the licensure process. So what they're gonna say is, you guys have Defiance, Bryan, multiple hospitals in Defiance, Bryan, 2 other critical access hospitals, all within a 35-mile radius, which is one of the criteria for critical access designation. The other thing that you can use as a caveat is, are we in mountainous terrain? Well, Ohio, this is my second time in Ohio, it's not very mountainous. However, the roads are very narrow, they're 55 to 45 miles per hour, and especially now, they're treacherous. So it technically meets that criteria. And so I've had one here, obtaining critical access designation is unlikely and should not be pursued. But it should be our first option, because the following options are much more likely to be approved without hesitation. So rural emergency hospitals, this comes with a monthly stipend. It is significant and it supports access to all of our emergency functions. So your triage, your life-saving measures, your ability to work with EMS, and like Corey was saying, instead of having EMS transfer every single person out 20 plus miles to neighboring facilities, they can be transferred here and that can save them time. But also Hicksville residents and then people in the immediate surroundings can come here when they're having an active heart attack or pulmonary embolism or stroke, and then we can have immediate interventions within that 15 to 20, 30 minute range and then essentially save their lives. It's happened frequently in most, if not all, of the rural critical access hospital that I've been to. And that would be the purpose of the rural emergency hospital. Inpatient mental health. So this comes from looking at rural hospitals, especially in light of decreased Medicaid reimbursement. We've all heard about the hysteria surrounding hospitals and rural hospitals and how they're all gonna fail now because of President Trump's one big beautiful bill and Medicaid cuts. Well, that's because the immediate surroundings are typically what a hospital is limited to. Inpatient mental health is the one caveat, where people are transferred for 100 plus miles away, 300 plus miles away, all for inpatient mental health placement. So this is a way to remove that barrier and subsequently increase the patient census to 1 million plus easily. Outpatient primary care and limited specialty services, so obviously you need to have continuity of care in your community, so introducing primary care, wound care, and then subsequently expanding to cardiology, orthopedics, potentially pain management, but all these things that people need but typically aren't accessible in rural settings. With the proximity to Fort Wayne, that would be easily achievable. Okay, so rural emergency hospital. Corey and I have had several discussions over the past, I think, week and a half-ish or so now, 2 weeks almost. So based on Community Memorial Hospital's volume in about 2021 to just prior to 2023, I believe the volumes were probably around 12 to 14,000. So this gives you an average daily volume, average daily census in the ER, somewhere between 30 to 37 patients per day. In 2024, as services were dwindling, community trust was being lost. I believe that dwindled down to somewhere between 4,000 to 5,000 patient visits per day. Annual patient visits. In the reopening, what I anticipate is that same loss of community trust, a little bit of hesitation. People will subsequently not know it's open, and then we'll start learning that it's open. So year one, ER volume, we anticipate to be between 300 to 3,500 patients. Year two, not exponential growth, pretty linear in year one, and then to year two, towards the end of that, adding everything together, 6,500 to 7,500. And year three is when we start seeing Community Memorial Hospital regain trust in the community, regain a firm foothold and stabilize with regards to ER volume. And then I haven't seen the firm data, but from what I understand, I believe this will probably stabilize in that 12 to 14,000 range. Especially if we have good care, we have good resources, we have good outpatient continuity. A lot of people are going to be coming here to receive their care in general. Okay, so staffing, I don't know how much this pertains to this context, so I kept it pretty brief. Year one and two, as we ramp up, your provider staffing is going to be a combination of physicians and mid-level providers. Of course, it has to be staffed 24 hours a day. We need to have an RN, an LPN, and a CNA at all times, so those three representatives. Unique things about the ERs are that paramedics are appropriately qualified to assist in staffing. This is a little thing from the business side, that the cost of a paramedic may be slightly less than the cost of a comparable RN or LPN. However, they are trained appropriately in life-saving interventions, and I've worked with several paramedics in the ER. Very frequently, their capabilities in that setting exceed our RNs and our LPNs, just because they have a very narrow scope in their training, and they do it really, really well, and it translates very well to the emergency room. Intake clerk, radiology, and labs. Gotta have it. Year three staffing, as we start to see things really increase in volume, our MD or DO physicians are gonna be there essentially 24 hours a day. We'll have a mid-shift NPPA that helps keeps costs down, but appropriately handle the high volume times. Our RNs stay the same, but then we have subsequently increased our LPN and paramedic presence. CNA in the ERs, you don't really need to increase those too much, but then your radiology and your lab went from 12 hours per day and on call after hours to now we need it staffed 24/7, because the volume should be fairly consistent between 10 p.m. and about 4 a.m., which are typical quiet times when you have lower volume ERs. So timeline, this is pertinent to this audience. So months 0 to 6, we're gonna be applying for reinstatement of the hospital license. I wish that it were fast. It's typically not, but this is gonna be through working with the Ohio State Department of Health, as well as with CMS, to regain licensure, as a functioning hospital. Concurrent with that, we'll submit applications for a rural emergency hospital. Our reasoning why, demographic information, everything to support, that designation and stipend. And then a concurrent application for inpatient mental health. This is a separate hospital license. There has to be physical separation, whether, that's a door, hallway, sometimes it's a separate building. In this case, it would be just a physical door, that can separate an inpatient mental health side from ER. Month 7, we have the ER reopening. And then again, contingent only on licensure timeline. So I have seen these things go a little bit faster, certainly with the recent closure of the hospital. Reconsideration for reinstatement of the license might occur faster, but I'm not CMS or OSDH, so I can't say that definitively, but there's certainly a need for it. 8 through 12, so the end of the year, we stabilize, and we're seeing growth to 12 to 15 patients per day in the ER. Months 13 through 24, so the second year, we're seeing growth from 16 to 27. So again, fairly linear. Estimated to be about one average of an increase in daily ER encounters of 1 patient per day every month that we move forward. And then we'll stabilize around 35 to 36 daily encounters at the end of year 3. Okay, so inpatient mental health. There's a huge stigma on mental health. Usually when I approach inpatient mental health, people think that we're gonna increase the amount of meth, cocaine, marijuana, drugs, all the bad things. It's the exact opposite. So we focus on geriatric mental health, so catering to our elderly population who are going through a change in their, I'm gonna say this wrong, in fact, I'm not even gonna try to say it, essentially at this stage of their life. Are there any psychology major people up here? No? Okay, I just had a discussion like this, but the one thing that people have in this stage of their life is coping with essentially the loss of independence and going from the provider to being the person that needs the providing. So we see a lot of anxiety, depression. We do see a lot of dementia with delirium, and then dementia-related psychosis. So people that are seeing things and hearing things. And these are managed in the inpatient setting with a variety of antipsychotics or antidepressants, anxiolytics, and that would be our target audience. I would say that would probably be 80% of our audience, and then 20% would be people that are a little bit younger, having acute suicidal ideations, their own psychosis, some schizophrenia spectrum disorders. Once they're under control, these are actually high-functioning people. It could honestly be anyone in this room. Anyone in this room can have schizophrenia, it can be well-maintained, and they can be high-functioning individuals. So physicians are another great example. A lot of physicians have to go seek care because of severe depression, anxiety, or suicidal ideation. So this is kind of to get rid of the stigma. But inpatient mental health makes a rural hospital very, very viable because you remove the barrier of the immediate population. And then I have a special place in my heart for the listed populations. So our veterans, I'm a former VA hospitalist and nocturnist, spent a little bit of time in the Navy, but this is a population that I know very, very well, and obviously it's always in the news. There's always a need for inpatient mental health for our veterans. PTSD, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, schizophrenia, everything. And we can do a really good job with them. VA contracts should be fairly easy. I'm not sure what the VA offers here, but it's been my experience so far throughout Oklahoma and Texas, as well as California, that while they recognize the need for better mental health services, they don't execute, they don't offer those things. So contracting with other neighboring facilities would be one of our plans. In Oklahoma and Texas, we have a large Indian Health Native American population. I bet you there is one here in Ohio, and so that would be another unique niche setting and population. And then, they pay for things different, right? They have Native American insurance and secure contracts, very similar to the VA. And then institutionalized, so this is not necessarily corrections. I'm thinking of long-term care facilities, assisted living, skilled nursing facilities. My business model for this setting of medicine relies strongly on forming strong relationships with our long-term care facilities. What a lot of people don't know is that these nursing homes are subject to rules and regulations from CMS that are unique and not, they're unique to this setting. So I have to take care of a patient in the inpatient mental health setting, very different for a patient that's coming from long-term care than I would from a patient that's coming from another setting. Outpatient, the VA, anything like that. For example, I can't discharge someone from a inpatient mental health facility back to a nursing home on an as-needed antipsychotic. It doesn't work, it's not compatible, you can't do that. So, it's an example. But we understand it, we know the regulations, and so I specifically wanna cater to probably the 30 to 40 assisted livings and nursing homes that are within a 20-30 mile radius in this area. So that would catch Fort Wayne, that would catch Defiance and Bryan. And honestly, the model, in the model, we facilitate transport to and from the facilities, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start catching people in 100 miles in any direction. Okay, yes, just talking about what we did, you notice drugs is not on here, so I do not really believe too heavily in the substance abuse programs. I am open to it, that's not what that's not the hill that I stand on though. If it's a big problem in the community, I wholeheartedly want to address it through a service like inpatient mental health. However, I do not want to have the demographic kind of disproportionately populate the area. That's usually people's concerns, is that we're gonna have more drug presence, more drug users, and that's not our intention, so. But if it's a problem here, then we can totally address it with the counseling that we have. Okay, inpatient mental health, again, 0 to 6 months, acquire licensure, plan for 20+ bed inpatient mental health. I believe that this is probably gonna get fairly high, as far as the occupancy and the average daily census. Month 7, start conservatively, average daily census of 1, some aggressive marketing, and an increase by 1 patient, average daily census monthly. So by the end of the year, we should have somewhere between 3 to 5 average daily census. In month 2, increase by 0.5 to 1. We wanna be towards 10 to 12 by the end of year 2, and then moving through year 3. Again, we've established our reputation, we've done our marketing, we have word of mouth now, and hopefully we grow to an average daily census of somewhere between 18 to 25. Again, this is bread and butter stuff. This is something where I think only Bryan has a small, not heavily utilized inpatient mental health. And it's coming from the CEO over at Mercy in Defiance. Year 1, just some of our staffing. So this is lower acuity. We're not dealing with sepsis and kidney failure and severe infections and stuff. So typically this setting is staffed less. But we have more of an emphasis on counselors. Their duty takes a lot more time. The MD and DO initially is gonna be part-time, a lot more remote. This is suitable for a mid-level provider. In fact, nurse practitioners have a specific credential, PMHNP, that trains them to deal with this. We also, as part of our team, have a proprietary software that our psychiatry medical director has developed, and it's a diagnostic algorithm followed by a treatment algorithm and then a gradual dose reduction. So we get the most appropriate diagnosis, we have the most appropriate treatment, and then we have attempts at reducing medication burden to try to get this person as optimized as possible. So year 2, just kind of staffing things. Okay, administration, this is our core team. I'm a physician, so I kind of bridge the gap or I kind of have this blurred responsibility between CEO and CMO. However, we do have 2 other physicians that serve in this leadership capacity, Dr. Ryan Reynolds and Dr. Kendall Almaraz. They are incredible physicians, so we just have to, which one officially holds that title, the CMO. We're planning on putting them in a cage and having them fight it out. So it's robust, immediate, on-site, 24/7, or not 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, 10 hours a day. Immediate local people, they live here, they're community members, to be, the on-site leadership. So a local hospital administrator potentially, taken away from, Fort Wayne or another surrounding community, a director of nursing, director of business development, so that's probably the most key role, the director of business development. So this is gonna be essentially our marketer, someone that has strong relationships in the community, someone that's gonna get the word out there, like, hey, we've got competent physicians, we've got competent nurses, everyone wants to, make these emergency services available for everyone. And then going around to our long-term care facilities, and our other, referral sources for our inpatient mental health. Business office manager for local on-site accounting, and then this person will also work with medical records. Facilities manager, so our maintenance, who overseeing maintenance and groundskeeping, probably in the conjunction with the village as well. Ancillary staff members, we gotta keep it clean, we gotta keep it working, we gotta keep it nice and cut, and then security and dietary. So, in some places I've seen security in the ER, certainly like larger trauma centers, security when inpatient mental health opens up, is definitely warranted. I have never seen security have to respond to inpatient mental health though. Never happens, very rarely happens. Typically you see security having to respond to, someone on a medical surgical floor in a traditional acute care hospital that is disgruntled and, they're totally lucid, but they get very angry, occasionally. But inpatient mental health, people are usually pretty calm. So the security is just there just for support, really. Sorry, this is supposed to be year 2. So year 2, we have more volume. We have more volume through the ER. We're turning the rooms over more frequently. We do now have an established average daily census in inpatient mental health. So this will necessitate increasing your janitorial presence. Your facility maintenance, we haven't gotten any new buildings, so probably keep it the same. This is, one person in addition to the manager. Groundskeepers, 1 or 2, we're not getting any more land. And then, security still 1. The census and volume does not warrant more than 1 security officer. And in fact, I've seen it where we just have security during the day and occasionally, if we need it, security during the night, and then the security during the day, if some things get out of hand, then it probably warrants a call to the local, law enforcement. So, and then dietary, you have more people to feed, so we've increased that as well. One thing I've thought with dietary though, is it would be pretty, I think it would be very synergistic, to have relationships with the local restaurants in Hicksville to increase their business. So I think that'd be something neat to do. All right, additional presence. So our outpatient services, I think these are very critical. If for nothing else, community outreach and building trust. So first 6 months, easy things to do. Our primary care, wound care, working on a specialty service with dermatology, getting them here once a week or once every other week. And then even having surgical days for dermatologic conditions. Months 4 through 12, outpatient mental health. This is gonna be a robust counseling service, our NPs and PAs for medical management. And usually underutilized services are labs, imaging, and then infusion. So people that have cancer getting infusions, people that have rheumatologic conditions getting infusions, even people that feel like crud and wanna stop by and, get IV fluids. I've had that happen recently to a couple of family members that's all they needed and they felt 100% better. They could go to the ER for that, they could go to some urgent cares for that, but infusion in this sense would be cancer and other like chemotherapy related infusions. So, have you guys had infusion or specialty clinics like dermatology. I know, Corey was saying orthopedics at one point, and maybe podiatry.
I'm not aware of any infusion.
Which is interesting, you know, cardiology is something that's usually very accessible. Again, specialty clinic, once a week, once every other week, in some instances, once a month. But you build up the volume, and when those clinics occur, they're very, very busy clinics. But it allows people to not have to travel, keep it all at home. Okay, so, economic impact, I have not done a kind of like a hard and fast, you know, you would see $2 million in increased revenue for the city, haven't done that. But immediately on reopening day one, even preceding day one, you have at least 20 jobs, 20 additional jobs. Late year one to year two, certainly anticipate about 20 to 50 jobs. There's the greater utilization of the restaurants. It's not uncommon that hospitals and healthcare entities cater. So I think catering would be fantastic. Even for the early parts of when we have an inpatient census, leaning on the local restaurants to boost the local economy, it would not be much more of an expense to us. So it's just benefiting other people. Again, you keep community members within your city limits. Part of our model is a health system sponsored transportation service. Oftentimes this is reimbursed by Medicaid when transporting a patient to or from a facility. You get, you know, taxes here from the revenue, and then revenue for the local businesses, and then the inpatient mental health presence should make a new industry for Hicksville. So Hicksville should be recognized as, okay, this is, you know, we go to Hicksville for mental health. This has happened in Oklahoma City. There's a place called Griffin Memorial. There's a place in Tulsa where essentially the names become synonymous with offering inpatient mental health services. I would not be surprised if at some point a psychiatry residency from Fort Wayne has this as one of the locations for their residents to have a presence in. So again, you align yourself with the big hospitals. Something I didn't put in here is one of the most crucial things for hospitals, small hospitals, to do is align themselves with the large hospital counterparts in neighboring towns. So right now we have that already at our fingertips with Mercy, and I see that there is kind of a relationship with Parkview, maybe like competitive, but also we want to, you know, benefit from what you bring as a larger institution. Some things I've done in the past are like a bi-directional transfer agreement, which means we'll transfer you our high acuity, you transfer us your low acuity, or having EMS, you know, if EMS is right in the middle of, let's say, Bryan and Hicksville, and it's a person with just dehydration, let's not take them to Bryan, let's take them to Hicksville, right? And versus if you have someone right in the same exact location that have a broken femur, of course you're not gonna take them to Hicksville, you're gonna take them to Bryan, right? Or you know, Defiance, where you've got orthopedic capabilities. But just working with all different entities like that to benefit from their resources. Let's see, so our CFO put this together. This is a breakdown of various things that would go into hospital success. So up here is distance to neighboring hospitals. So you notice 20, 21, 23, 27. So this is all what bodes against this hospital regaining critical access designation. If it does regain critical access designation, then you have 25 beds that are accessible for acute inpatient care and swing bed stays. If that were attainable again, then all these numbers would be off, and then there would probably be slightly less loss the first year and a longer ramp up period to achieve stability, because it hinges on your ability to recruit swing bed patients. Okay, let's see, this is kind of what we went over here. this right here is your population, your census. So we found differing numbers, in, you know, the population here plus or minus around 3,500. So within 10 miles, I believe it was about 18,000, and then 20, is it 5 miles? Maybe, no, I think it was 5 miles. 5 miles is 18,000, 10 miles is 54,000, and 20 miles, I believe. No, get that out a little bit, cause my last calculation included parts of Fort Wayne. But I think within about a 30-mile, 40-mile radius, you start catching some of the suburban areas of Fort Wayne, and then you can get into 100,000, as far as your population in that radius. More or less, our catchment for this area falls within that 20-mile range, 10 to 20-mile range, and I think we've got about 36,000 people that might utilize, the hospital for its services. And we went down here, one of the big things that drives hospitals is your Medicare, payer mix. So people that are eligible for Medicare, we have about 16.5%. Of course, your utilization of healthcare services is gonna be much more heavy here. So it's gonna be of your patients, how many are Medicare? And the answer is probably around 30, 35, 40. And so the population here is much more than it is in other institutions or other locations. So we did a lease right here, in the situation that Corey and I were discussing. Hicksville would purchase the, hospital. It would be, the real estate would be owned by the village of Hicksville. We would pay a lease, 8% for medical, so $21,000 per month. We cover utilities as well. Let's see, one of the big things that has come up is the fire suppression system, which Caleb and I have discussed, and I believe there's some grants and monies put aside for that. This is a calculation for us. This is a breakdown of reimbursement. So where we got our numbers as far as, so by year 2, we're positive, which is significant, because that means like, okay, one of the biggest things that's gonna prevent the hospital from reopening is financial burden. Essentially, that's probably the only thing. So how quickly can we become less negative, and how quickly can we become positive? So taking a closed entity that closed because of financial distress and maybe some other things, and then getting it reopened and stabilized in 1 year, and then in your second year you're positive, that's incredible. So it's just gonna take appropriate management. I think these are a little bit conservative as far as your reimbursement goes. But this has allowed us to calculate that we'll be positive by year 2 and then be able to offer these services. None of this takes into account outpatient services. None of this takes into account, potentially in like years 4 or 5, being able to reopen surgical suites and offer relatively mild surgical interventions. So like same-day surgeries, maybe 24-hour observation surgeries. All right. So this is an expanded version of the pro forma, more or less, and we've taken into account, you know, supplies, pharmacies, gas, x-rays, insurance, even laundry, IT, food and dietary supplies, and this here is a mix of like per patient, per diem, per month, percent of revenue, etc. Here's some salaries up here. Mike, our CFO, and I went through this last night, and I was telling him, like, you know, Hicksville, I worked in places like Hicksville, you can cut some of this out, and we went through a little thought experiment. You can cut a little bit of the staffing, and it erases $500,000 per year in expenses, which makes everything that much more financially viable. So, that would be the plan. Pursue rural emergency hospital, inpatient, mental health, robust outpatient services, very heavy community outreach, in an attempt to get the hospital reopened, and then strategic partnerships with Mercy and Parkview for additional support. Questions?
Yeah, I have questions about the mental health side of it, because we deal with that
Oh, yeah.
almost every day.
Yeah.
So, since our hospital is closed, we now have to go to Defiance to the coping center. So would you be taking on, as far as inpatient, cause the biggest thing that we saw is no placement for people with mental health, suicidal ideation, schizophrenic, right, because we've had them, when the hospital was open, they would sit there 24 to 48 hours before they were even have a bed open.
Oh, yeah, 72.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and then, second thing was lack of transportation to get them there. A lot of times, we ended up doing transports
Yes.
to Toledo, or sometimes at the beginning of the coping center, we left out in
Yeah.
Defiance. But the one thing, how about juveniles? Is there a chance anyone under the age of 18?
Yes, so I will have to look at the hospital. Typically how this is arranged, we have a great example of this in Tulsa. There is a wing for dementia, they separate them, dementia, geriatrics, eating disorders is very prominent, and then juveniles. And sometimes eating disorders and juveniles overlap a little bit, but more or less. If we can keep everyone separate and we can offer those different entities. A couple of hurdles are sometimes the counseling services that go along with juvenile mental health are very unique and more niche and difficult to come by. But otherwise, a psychiatrist should be able to handle adolescent care. There's a fellowship for it. Is it necessary? Probably not, no. Especially when you're talking about limited access. So another example, in Oklahoma City, when I was covering an ER, I had to hold a patient child for 72 hours in an ER room, only to get placement in Dallas, which is 3 hours away. So it's probably more or less the equivalent of holding a patient here, only to get placement in Cincinnati or Indianapolis or something horrendous, right? Crossing state lines, just on the other side of the state. But we would essentially be a psychiatry, a mental health ER. So if you bring your patients in, even if it's drugs, you bring them in, we assess them, they're acutely psychotic, we call up to the floor, we admit them with admission orders, and instead of having to wait that 24, 48, 72 hours for transfer, you're in the place where they would get transferred to anyway. So we'll probably be accepting people for transfer from outside places that struggle with the same thing, the same situations that you're alluding to. So
Yeah,
it would reduce your burden.
Yeah, so you would have somebody on site that would actually do the evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
So we would no longer have to use so right now we have a service that's Guidestone, Ohio Guidestone, right? So we bring someone to the hospital would actually call that service in. And, we were waiting sometimes for 3 to 4 hours just for them to get there.
Yeah, so
And then-
I typically don't agree with those services. Have you ever seen one of those encounters occur?
Oh, yeah.
What are the credentials of the person doing the evaluation?
Just probably training, schooling, probably the lowest.
It's a counselor.
Yeah.
And so a counselor is less equipped to diagnose than a physician or an NP or a PA. And I've run into this specific scenario where a counselor someone came in and it was a younger person and they said, I'm gonna kill myself. I said, okay, that person just told me that they're gonna kill themselves if they go home. And so it was the hospital's protocol to bring in a counselor on an iPad and do an assessment, right? An assessment. And so they go in, close the door, they do their assessment on their iPad, and then I talk to the counselor again as the physician, and she says, okay, we developed a safety plan. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I would say anything that I could if I realized I was in trouble and I was gonna lose my freedom for a period of time, and I would tell them, I'm not gonna kill myself. And to come up with a safety plan, so.
You see that quite a bit, even with ER physicians.
Yeah, so we would not do that. So, like, if you say you're gonna kill yourself and you're otherwise lucid, the physician or mid-level, whoever is going to, we're gonna have a protocol for that. We'll have an admission orders for that. That person's gonna get admitted and stay no less than 72 hours in the inpatient mental health floor. so that we can make sure that we, put them through their paces. They talk with a counselor probably twice a day for each of those 3 days that they're admitted, and they're discharged, now confident that we've addressed whatever was leading them to the issue. We've started them on any appropriate intervention or medication that they need to help them get over what they're suffering with, and they have follow-up with the outpatient mental health and counselors, that are available, cause you can't just put the fire out and think it's gonna stay out. You gotta put the fire out, you gotta have follow-up, ongoing follow-up, so, I feel like the model is pretty robust. It definitely addresses those issues. The safety plans, I don't believe in these scenarios, so.
Yeah, I mean, it almost sounds like something similar to, Defiance where you're going with our coping center.
Yeah.
Because we can, now we can go there, the ER physician will look at them, and sometimes it's just a call up to the coping center.
Oh, yeah.
And to the psychologist up there and saying, this is what we got, and we can bypass guidance them.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
doing any type of evaluation.
Yeah, no, it would very much look like that.
So.
You bring them in, you guys, part of your team will have a discussion with the physician or the provider representing the ER. And more or less, I have order sets built, and so we have a complaint, we put the order set in, and essentially it's just gonna start a process, so the person gets taken care of more so than a cursory evaluation.
Yeah, and there's some new law changes coming on what we call the emergency commitment pink slipping, which they're trying to
Unique
put.
here, or,
For Ohio.
okay, is it?
So like I have the authority to pink slip somebody.
Oh, you should, yeah.
Alright, so, and there's some new, training and some new laws that may be taking effect where we might have, a little bit more power with doing something, I'm not sure. They're trying to work on getting training later this summer.
Yeah, it's probably because they had people that didn't have an emergency order of detention. And they had
Yes, a
safety,
lot of it,
they had a safety plan, and they went home and,
Got hurt.
yeah, exactly.
yeah, cause we would pick it, we would, get a lot of programs for mental health evaluations.
Yeah, yeah.
But just listening to what you're saying tonight, I mean, we would definitely, this whole area is in need of mental health.
Even as an attorney, I do a lot of abuse, neglect, dependency cases, and part of their case plan was go get an assessment Ohio Guidestone, and it's not a
Yeah.
legit assessment at
No.
all. And that's a Williams County, like, we're always sending them to Guidestone or Shalom, and I feel like they're not actually assessments, so that could be something that we could recommend as well, that
Yeah.
they come here instead.
Absolutely. So, because of your expertise, if I were an expert witness and someone told me that they had a counselor's evaluation, diagnostic with a treatment plan recommended, I'm gonna say, that's outside of your scope. It's outside of your scope. You don't have MD, DO, NP, or PA after your name, and therefore it's outside of your scope. You provide an ancillary adjunctive service. You don't provide a diagnostic and therapeutic intervention service. So,
I'd say 90% of the time we see no further services recommended.
yeah, it's totally inappropriate. But we're doing this in Oklahoma and Texas. We're doing this in California. We have other hospitals reaching out to us as well to reframe what a rural hospital can be, from a struggling acute care hospital to now robust inpatient mental health, where they're actually getting patients sent to them from outside hospitals as opposed to only sending patients out. So,
Will you be bringing your own physicians or recruiting? I mean, I'm sure you're aware, there's a pretty big doctor shortage in this area.
there is a doctor shortage everywhere, but definitely driving around and getting an idea of the landscape. So, I'm actually in the process of getting my Ohio license so that I can alleviate the burden in this tough period of the hospital reopening. So I will probably personally be staffing the ER for a while. But nonetheless, I don't know any physicians. Well, I know very few physicians in Ohio, but it would be a recruitment process. But I can alleviate the burden until we get stable physician presence. My mental health director, however, he will also be getting his Ohio license, and he'll be able to provide some of the psychiatry guidance.
But you won't be able to staff it 24/7 within the first 6 months with you alone.
So 24/7 for, with this volume, I personally have done, 7 days. 7 days. There's typically a lull in, patient volume through the ER, at least between 10 and 4. But I'm not saying I'm gonna do that. I'm saying that I'm available to provide coverage if we run into an issue where we don't have sufficient physician coverage to accommodate. So, right now, I do anticipate probably using our nurse practitioners and our PAs as well. Of course, appropriate training. Our model is different, you know, what I've seen in the past is people will, throw anyone with an appropriate credential in a setting. And that person probably isn't gonna be appropriate to handle everything that walks through the door, or rolls through the door. So we have intubation, sessions, we've got central line sessions, we've got, code sessions where we train everyone appropriately. Probably very similar to what your EMS and your fire crew do with, going, mock encounters, to make sure that everyone's appropriately trained to handle emergency situations.
So we utilize locums, like what's,
No, not locum, so, like, we'll actually like go out and recruit for direct hire.
I mean, I know that sounds great, but even the biggest health system in the region is utilizing locums in community hospitals. No one wants to move to cold northwest Ohio, northeast Indiana.
No, I hear you. So we might be put in circumstances where we need to. A good friend of mine, is a vice president of a staffing company. So we do have an in that way as well. As silly as it sounds, Indeed has served me really, really well. We get quite a bit of interest in Indeed. So, sometimes they're older physicians. They want a little bit of a slower ER, and then we get people sign up and it's kind of like right place, right time, or, we have the right description, or they come and they do it once and they go, man, I really like this, I like the community, and then we have buy-in from even the physicians, so, we definitely could be in a position where we have to use locum tenens, but, I can offset some of it, which will help out.
How long of a lease term?
I don't know, I didn't think about that. What do you guys think? Like a 5-year lease? 3-year lease, 2-year lease?
We were asking 10 from the last.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't see why not. I think that's pretty standard, 10-year lease, pretty standard.
Is it personally guaranteed or anything? Is at least personally guaranteed?
We're probably gonna have to get some investors to do a personal guarantee of a $250,000 lease.
If it was 10 years, it would be over a $3 million lease.
Yeah, I mean, I can probably put it this way, the amount of money that we're gonna have to invest to get it going through year 1, will probably mean that we're not planning on going anywhere anytime soon, unless the village terminates any sort of agreement. So like, on Mike's projections, year 1 loss was like $1 million. Now, we can mitigate that through me covering some shifts, we can, cut out, he overstaffed it quite a bit, but we can cut out his overstaffing, and then we, cut out probably like $600,000. Still an estimated $500,000 year 1 loss, which isn't nothing. But yeah, just lots of resources. I mean, you have things like your EMR that you have to get signed up for, those have minimum probably 2-year commitments. Getting out of those any time early would result in a penalty and a loss as well, so. Yeah, I mean, if we're able to work with the village in operations and management for, capacity, it definitely means that we're committed for a long time, and we don't have any, we aren't anticipating going anywhere, because that would mean that we made a commitment, significant commitment for no reason.
How many other hospitals like this have you done? And does the village always purchase the hospital with you just leasing?
No, so we have, in fact, we've got two other, projects that we're doing right now in Oklahoma. One's in western Oklahoma, the other one's in eastern Oklahoma. The one in western Oklahoma is, we lease, and the one in eastern Oklahoma is we own. Our corporate group, our corporate council has done probably 40 of these, and they're all different. It depends on, is the hospital closed, who owns the hospital? Sometimes the private ownership, sometimes they're county owned, sometimes they're in trust or other hospital authority type structures. No, it's just whatever works, whatever the city wants, whatever the body that owns it wants. Different circumstances lead to different structures.
Was there any interest from you guys to just purchase the hospital without the village's participation?
Not for this hospital. I'm so unfamiliar with Ohio that they would give me quite a bit of pause. But, you know, certainly, what I have been thinking about is almost like a lease to own.
That was gonna be my next question.
Yep, so if we get in a, you know, year 2, year 3, everything's going super duper well, then we get in a position where we lease to own, we pay back your guys' purchase price like plus 10% or something like that, then, you know, I don't see why not. This was kind of thrust into front and center for us, last minute in the auction house. I called him once and he was like, no, we're not gonna entertain offers pre-auction. And then he called me back the next day and he's like, hey, can we get this done like in the next 7 days? I'm like, I haven't seen the due diligence, you haven't offered me a tour, like I haven't seen any of this stuff. But yeah, potentially if we had more time to go through a process like a due diligence period and understand what we're getting into, that may have been our first option. But given the circumstances, the best option for us is to lease the property, own the hospital license, operate everything, and then, you know, next steps, you know, we could think about like the lease to own option.
Your other facilities that the big cities kind of, are your rural setting, or when I say this is rural?
They're rural.
Just like
This is
this.
actually less rural. Less rural. So one of the hospitals that I did was critical access in western Oklahoma had an average daily census of 0 to 1 swing bed, average of 3 to 5 in the ER. It's critical access, so you know the reimbursement's different, and so it was not being sustained even on those numbers though. But what we did was we did robust marketing, we did robust outreach. We ended up hiring some good older physicians that love the small town, they love the slower pace in the ER. And then we got, over the course of 2 years, we took the average daily census from 0 to 1 to like 12. And so you have an average daily census of 12 swing bed patients, each one, you get around $1,200 per day per patient. So you're getting, what, $14,400 per day with an average daily census of 12, and then you multiply by 365, so they're making quite a bit of money, like that, so. And that had a population of 1,100, or maybe, I think it was 11 or 1,200, Shattuck, Oklahoma. And then the one in eastern Oklahoma that we're doing right now is in Wagoner. That one has a quite a bit larger population, so rural, but not this rural. And the other one's in Pauls Valley. We have one in, that we've been asked to do in Maricopa County, just south of Phoenix. And then we have a larger one, that's on the table for us in Antelope, County, California, which is more or less LA County. And then, so we've got representations from all different, more rural, less rural, and this is kind of right in the middle. But the proximity to everything opens up so many doors for the viability of several of the options that I outlined here.
Do you have any problem securing insurance contracts? I mean, I know that there's been some smaller community hospitals near here that have failed because they couldn't secure those insurance contracts,
Which ones?
specifically? Article was one of them,
Article?
prior to Parkview purchasing it.
So, there's always issues with insurance. But as long as we can secure the major payers with Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross, United Health, Aetna, you'll be pretty good. So the bargaining power comes with your patient census, right? And so we might struggle bus a little bit for the first year as our census grows, and then we can reapproach every year to these various insurances that might have caused us a problem, is to say, look, we're doing this much in census each year. Many of these are your guys' patients. We're gonna put a sign on the door that says, we're not treating these patients because you guys don't have a contract with us. So, and year one, they might say, okay, you only treat 2 of our patients a year. And so, but then year two, if we treat 200 patients of theirs a year, then it's a different conversation. So, we might not get it year one, but year 2 and year 3, as the census grows and the impact on their immediate population becomes more significant, and we have more bargaining power.
So is that when you say something like that, you talk about like, here just recently, ProMedica was gonna drop our insurance that we have here for the village.
Yeah.
And, so they'd sent out letters saying they were gonna accept, medical mutual here last. And now they renegotiated, and now they're going to accept it.
Yeah, so I had an instance
Is that what
recently.
you're talking about, something like that?
I mean, hospitals have insurance negotiations all the time, I mean, that's not uncommon, but they just didn't secure the, insurance, and people would literally drive past that hospital to go to the next one, because that's where their insurance was covered.
Yeah, so they probably had a more favorable contract, so I've seen some contracts even with big payers like Blue Cross Blue Shield that's paying 25% of a typical physician fee schedule, which is crazy. You can't feed your family for 25% reimbursement of what you should be getting. Yeah, it's just, in your instance, what you said, and I think probably the example you're alluding to, they offered a ridiculous contract, something that wasn't even worth the time and effort. I have a little bit different philosophy. I view that circumstance as an investment, right? So I might lose my shirt for a year treating patients of a particular insurance, but then we're showing good faith, we're gaining the trust of the community. Now all of a sudden we have more of their patients, and we can go back to them and negotiate, after we've lost a little bit because we put that investment in.
Have you ever had a failure, like when you try to bring up a new hospital back?
We haven't had a failure. No, we have not had a failure. It's because the model is very different. If we tried to just reopen an acute care hospital, we could do some things and probably mitigate some of the losses, but we can't turn around a hospital this quick with just trying to do the same thing that got them in trouble in the first place. So, and I don't know the whole story about what led to the closing. Obviously there's financial issues. Usually in rural hospitals, we see some degree of mismanagement of funds. And so I don't know if that played a role here, but all the recent hospitals that we've been involved in, there was a fairly robust mismanagement of funds, and we don't do that, so we haven't encountered issues like this. But I think right now, especially with the cuts to Medicaid reimbursement, if you try to operate as an acute care hospital in a rural setting like this with neighboring larger facilities, you're shooting yourself in the foot. There's no way you can be successful. So, and then some of the other things that I like to utilize that other people don't is we really make our lab available, right? We go out and we're gonna bend over backwards for the community and say, look, we're gonna go to the nursing homes, we're gonna draw your labs, so you guys don't have to worry about it, your assisted livings, your clinics, your everything that we can do, and then making the imaging available honestly, you do it right, you're probably talking about another $1 million annually in revenue from those two services alone. So, that can probably save quite a bit from quite a few hospitals from closing if you maximize those additional revenue sources.
Would you be utilizing the entire building?
Corey shared with me the plan to potentially utilize it for, village occupancy. So I don't know the layout of the facility. I did a lap around it today. So I can almost guarantee you we're not gonna be using the entire facility. Some of the space, it looks like, is geared towards things that we wouldn't, I would love to promote, but if we offer too many things, then we can also get lost in the weeds, but, probably wouldn't utilize those spaces, and, based on what Corey explained, I don't think we would have any issue with splitting the space, cause those are administrative offices anyway, right? Yeah, so.
What about the future growth of it though?
I mean, the future growth of the hospital would, more RNs, LPNs, and physicians are all gonna be on the actual medical floors. The, immediate staff, administrative staff, probably is not gonna grow in size as much. We could probably have a lot of it off-site if there's an issue with common space.
So the future growth wouldn't necessarily turn into a full-scale hospital like it used to be then?
No, I think, well,
Where
I
you
don't
would have
know
to
what,
utilize you would need all that space.
well, you're talking about administrative space, right? Places that were used for,
The old hospital, yeah, the front half of it, that was their administrative area. That's what the village is interested in, relocating all of our offices
so where I
to that
see it,
section.
where I see a lot of the growth is gonna be to, offering more primary care services, outpatient, more, specialty clinic services. And so I think that area is gonna lead to growth, but I don't know if the occupied spaces is gonna be the same space or not. So,
It ends up breaking down to about 10%, right, Corey? The village would be interested in.
Yeah, the old hospital's approximately 27,000 square feet.
But we didn't need all 27,000.
We could utilize it.
I know at one point in time, you had talked about like 10 to 14, but you think that 27?
Yeah, so the old hospital's about 27, and I think we would utilize that old hospital, just the front half, not back in the 96 portion where the doctor's offices are, just the main office areas up there, the old ER, the old patient rooms that CMH had for offices. We wouldn't, we personally wouldn't utilize Health Fit. Originally, we talked about utilizing Health Fit, but, there's been a lot of interest in people wanting that, to bring Health Fit back.
So that's a third of it, right there.
probably too much.
And really, I'm not interested in moving down there, my office, because I have to answer to security issues with leads, NCIC, stuff like that. So, you can count me out of it if you need to, because I'm not interested in that move.
But you think taking 27,000 for our space, you think that's too much, you would need more of that area?
Again, I haven't seen the.
Right, you haven't been in the.
Yeah,
building
I haven't
space,
been in there, so I'm 27,000 square feet is a lot of square feet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's well, I mean, you guys really need 27,000 square feet?
Not if they don't go, no.
Well, but I would be curious if they don't go, I guess. I thought this was all of us finding a central location, so that if they're not interested in going, or they're not required to go, then is this something we really need to pursue?
Well, we've talked about that, we've talked about this for a long time, about trying to bring in 3 entities, getting rid of 3 older buildings.
Right.
To be housed under one roof.
Right.
I knew Chief wasn't really excited about the move and stuff like that, but, with this more bringing infrastructure improvements for security and measures of bringing in.
I would have to do it,
things like that.
because I've already talked to Leeds, they would have to do a site inspection to even see if we could even move there.
So,
So,
one time we would, to be honest, we were talking, they would be maybe down more by the health area, right? But we have entities that kind of wanna bring that back to health.
yeah,
You know?
that's what I'm saying, if you know, that's why I'm putting it out here, I'm not interested in moving, you know, so if you need that space, you know.
27,000 square feet, that's a lot, I mean, that's.
I think it's 27, I'll double
I
check
thought
my
it was-
numbers.
But I mean, for you to say we need that much space, I mean, that's all over first and second floor elementary classrooms at the school, that's right, 25, 26,000
Check
square
the
feet.
square foot, it's been a while since I looked at the file, but what I'm saying is that old hospital, that would separate us from everything else. So we don't have people wandering around back here in the ER area. I mean, we'd be in our own separate building. Cause there is, you know, 3 buildings down there.
Probably like a walkthrough and say this is the space that we want, these are the people that we want.
After this, I can show you the floor plans of it, so.
So I think allowing for, like clinical growth, but not necessarily administrative function, as long as we can accommodate the clinical growth to a point, there's gonna be a point, that Hicksville will support. But yeah, it could be an issue, I don't think it would necessarily be an issue though.
I guess I don't wanna see the whole village, you know, or village offices moving down there, and then it comes to the time that this thing is growing, and is really taking off, and you need additional space, and if you can't get that additional space,
Yes, yeah.
and we had moved all of our office down there, you know, cause I think we all have the same idea, we're looking for some type of medical facility here,
That's first and foremost,
Yeah.
for sure.
you know, so.
But with your plan and how you're structuring this, what type of growth, I mean, you kind of projected certain growth levels, and you're in an area where you're really, you said not familiar, right?
Yeah, not familiar, but, doing, you know, cause I don't know how, like, how do you play with Mercy? I know there's a relationship there, you know, a little bit. How do you play with Brian? Are they friend or foe? Are they open to collaboration? How is this gonna affect EMS? What, you know, I don't think EMS is gonna cause or there's gonna be an issue with EMS. What's the community's overall, opinion and stance on the hospital? And is any sort of bad taste gonna be left in their mouths when it reopens? So like, what kind of adoption are we gonna see, and, just the overall tone of acceptance for the hospital reopening? And that's more or less what I mean, I'm not really familiar with the area, but the demographics, the population density, the catchment area, all support, a fairly robust rural hospital.
Yeah, and you mentioned the, you know, potential lease to own, so that, then again, that wouldn't work for us either. If we moved down there in 5 years, you guys wanted to buy it out from us, we don't wanna lease from anybody. We would wanna, you know, we wanna own our own facility.
Well, I mean, could you, you know, treat it like a parcel and, you know, parcel it out, and if it's fairly well defined, and then, you know.
The way it's set up, that portion, you know, hospital's kinda tied into the 96 portion, so there'd be a lot of work to be done to separate it.
So it might not work, to do a lease to own, it might just be a lease to lease, so, but.
That, or, you know, you guys have the whole thing to yourself and we stay put.
Or,
Yeah.
lease to own,
You wanna build it anymore?
No, I mean,
They wanna,
I think we can all agree, if it came down to us moving, and, you know, or not moving for them to do something, then we'll stay put, you know, hospital, healthcare for, you know, first and foremost, 100%.
What would you think eventually, like minor surgical? I know Dr. Growthhouse and minor surgery, that was a big
yes.
deal.
Yeah, so years 3 through 5, we would focus on reopening the OR. So critical services first in years 1 through 3, and then 3 through 5, we'd be, looking to reopen the OR. So, hurdles to reopening the OR are gonna be the license designation. An REH can't have surgical services like that, an inpatient mental health hospital can't have services that would be extremely beneficial. That is a hugely viable option. So it just comes down to what CMS and, Ohio State Department of Health is gonna, approve. So they might say, no, this is all one, continuous building and structure, there's no physical barrier. And so we're not gonna approve this as an ambulatory surgery center and an inpatient mental health and REH, you're triple dipping. But it certainly, would make sense. Cause I've run into this in the past, we shut down ORs because they're so not viable. They would take over $1 million in just like HVAC repairs, because they were getting so humid that you had to pump water out because the humidity would just collect in there. It was an HVAC system, issue. It's gonna cost over $1 million to just fix the HVAC, let alone everything else that the water destroyed. Even prior to getting beds, surgical supplies in there, all other costs. So in that situation, it wasn't viable. In this situation, as I understand it, the surgical suites are pristine, they're great. So it's much more of a viable option here. But I would definitely try to pursue it. You can get urology here, you can get some minor OBGYN procedures here, you can definitely have arthroscopies here, with, outpatient recoveries.
You mentioned the fire suppression group, do we have an estimate? At one point in time, I heard 200,000.
I've heard anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million to do the entire facility. I've asked for the Terracon report, we didn't have them come through. Another health system had them come through, and they're very hesitant on sharing all the information. I called the Excel group today, who I'm familiar with. I worked with them for almost 20 years to do all of our fire suppression stuff in the hospital. And kind of picking their brain to see, this thing was inspected by Joint Commissions, it was inspected by the state of Ohio up until the day it closed. Well, we're assuming in 24 it was still inspected. We know it wasn't 23. So what needs to be done? I mean, the lines aren't bad, the sprinkler heads aren't bad. Is it a panel issue? And I gave them the price on this upgrade. The only thing that Excel can come up with is the NFPA 25 regulations have changed. And so they're currently updating Toledo Hospital, which is massive compared to CMH. When I gave him the $750,000 price tag, he said they were about a quarter of that to do the NFPH 25 upgrades at Toledo Hospital. So I'm really kind of confused on what needs to be done with the fire suppression.
Who would pay for that? Is that us? Is that the leaser?
It'd be our building, so it'd be on us.
Because originally we had discussed whoever leased it paying for that.
Right, with them.
Right.
But we've never had discussions with him and his group on how this would work.
We would have to have the fire suppression probably paid for. Because, like Corey said, I have heard up to $1 million. And so, that's significant. It's really, really significant. And it's so significant, it almost calls into question, like, how much is the building worth? The fire suppression system's gonna cost you that much.
Yeah.
And also, why was it $1 million? So, from what I heard, after talking with Mercy, was, that it was an age of the system as opposed to an actual structural integrity, right? So, pipe's not broken, pipe's not rusted, as far as I know. It's that the age of the system necessitates its replacement. That's essentially what was in the report. I have had personal experience with this recently, same system, same scenario, and it costs about $1 million to replace. Now granted, some of this was underground, so like the water main going from city connection to facility connection was underground, and that part had to be replaced as well. And I don't know if that would be in this instance, but, yeah, it was, $1 million.
I'm thinking if it's that kind of price, it has to deal with all the pull stations, the strobe, the lights, and the panel. Because like, all of our our stuff, your sprinkler heads get inspected so often.
Yeah.
You have to have a air test every so often, hydro test every so often, you gotta do an internal pipe inspection.
And it's not like it's drained, it's,
No.
it's system's still full.
Those are all 5-year, 7-year, 10-year inspections, all depends on which one it is, and
Like I said, if it's, you know, Toledo Hospital is much, much larger. So, yeah, even the Excel group had no idea, just because it's been shut down for a year, why it would warrant a complete replacement.
I won't say some of those panels, the main panel, they go obsolete.
Sure.
It's technology.
Sure.
And sometimes you gotta readdress every circuit, every strobe, every horn, every pull station, every smoke detector.
Sounds like once it closes up, you're no longer grandfathered, what it sounds like, with anything if you go to reopen.
Revalidation, inspections are much more, the first one's always the worst. And then subsequent are, you know, they almost go like, oh, you've passed the past, you know, year, 2 years, you're gonna pass this year, it's cursory inspection, so.
So I guess part of it is this auction is going on right now, and you haven't seen the building, say we buy this building, let's just say you're gonna see it and then not.
No, so it was operational, the only thing that would prevent me from operating it is if it were not suitable to be occupied. Right, and I've seen some pretty rough rural ERs and, you know, but, Corey's been in there with some degree of an inspection that's been performed, right? And then I also spoke with Mercy, and they had their own inspection, the Terracon inspection performed, right? And so, there were no, significant outstanding issues other than the fire suppression system that was identified. And that's like a sleeper thing that you can't walk into the facility and go, oh, this facility's not viable because of the fire suppression system. So someone went and sought that out and probably went and looked at the date on it that it was installed, so.
No, it's just from obviously I can't operate off of verbal, so that's why I'm trying to make sure we don't get into this and.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I did tell Corey is that, I think that your guys' bid, earlier or last year was way too high, especially with that information, with that insight. With that, I also told Corey before everyone got here that I don't think there's any other bidders at the auction. Because if you see a hospital facility without an active hospital license, that is a money drain until a hospital license is, provided.
Well, and overall, I think there's gonna be someone would have come to the table by now, but.
Yeah, and I think the auction house reaching back out to me the day after I called them and they said no, and they were trying to, you know, play hardball and then call me again right after. I think that's also gonna tell us a little bit, but.
Well, it went on the auction at noon today, there's still not a bid on there, so.
Yeah.
Justin has a question.
I would like to say, and you guys know that the hospital's been a touchy subject with me, and I don't mean that negative, but I truly believe what you are saying 100%. The town will end up at the hospital for free, and one of the reasons is nobody can buy it unless you're a government entity, because I can't even get the taxes figured out on that property. I'm registered for the auction. I'm not buying the auction. I'm not buying it because the taxes are gonna kill it. And if you guys get into the water or the fire system, it's like you said, it could be huge money, it could not be. I want Hicksville to thrive. I want somebody like you to come to our town. I'm into real estate, so you know.
I was about to ask, are you a developer?
Yes, at the end of the day, it's about the lease and it's about if you're personally guaranteeing it. And what you guys just set up there, if Parkview buys it, our community wins. If Mercy buys it, our community wins. If nobody buys it, you guys are gonna get this building for free, because what's the receivership gonna do with it? You guys are in the middle of a chess game, you're just sitting there waiting.
So,
The patients will win, and you'll get it for free, and hopefully then they can come to you and say, sir, we'd love to have you come back to our community and put in your needs.
well, we already know Mercy's not a player, you know, they bowed out, and I don't believe money's an the money for acquisition, I don't think is necessarily high priority for them. You know, they could have paid $5 million for it if it were gonna be a viable entity that they were gonna run. Yeah, and I don't know how, is Parkview bigger than Mercy here?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's bigger than Mercy, okay.
I've been in meetings with Parkview, so you guys know, and they told me, and you've probably been in meetings with you guys, is they don't want such a big overhead. They wanna come to the community, they wanna have a small they are lying to me, that's fine, and if they buy it, our community's great, now we don't have the overhead, and then they have a building. I heard Corey saying, I'm not against Corey. One of Corey's goals, which I think Corey's a great visionary for this town of trying to steer it, is to try to get all the offices under one roof. Well, if Parkview doesn't want it, maybe you guys can work a deal with them, but I truly wholeheartedly believe nobody is gonna buy this building. It's not a race. I've watched it too, Eric, it's still at $250,000, and Crexy's been calling me.
Is that what they do? They start
I had to call it.
pounding you?
I had to call it that.
I think someone's only gonna bid on it in the last 2 hours, that's when all the action happens.
Somebody's gonna try to steal it, is what they're gonna try to do.
Sure.
But I go back to it, and I said this in the last meeting, you know, I bought Casa Grande, and I went home and I thought, man, I bought an awesome deal, $40,000 for a building. Cost me $750,000 to bring it up to code. I'm in the same scenario with Charlie's right now, I just bought the local tavern. In Charlie's, the fuse panel box, the electrical box, they cut the 3-bay sink out. And the fuse panel box sits right where the sprayer is, that you would spray. Now, they pulled the meter, and if I don't touch it, it's okay. But as soon as I touch it, I've gotta redo the whole building. Well, I'm not gonna have the 3-bay sink with the electrical panel right there. I mean, my dad probably did it 20 years ago because the thing. But once you open one can of worms, it's like all the worms jump out of the box. And I've done it twice. My wife's not real happy. So I wish you guys the best, and thank you for coming on. It sounds like you've come a long way.
That's
From Oklahoma?
Yeah, I fly a lot though, we
Gotcha.
cover actively Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, and California. So I do a lot of travel, you know, provide guidance and leadership to the different providers, but, you know, this is important, this is fantastic, this is a great opportunity.
I have nothing in this. I have faith in our council, make the best decision. I wish you guys the best, all of you, and I wish you the best in life, so
I
good luck.
appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Other questions? Thoughts?
Thank you for your time.
No,
Great presentation.
Excellent
No,
presentation.
glad I didn't bore you guys, but yeah, I guess find out what happens with the auction, and then based on the outcome of that, then we'll have further discussions about being the operations and management.
Do they have a reserve minimum bid?
250.
They'll sell it for $250.
No,
That's the
there's a
opening bid.
reserve.
I was gonna say,
There's
that's,
a reserve.
That's the opening.
Now,
yeah.
Philip did say that he alluded to, he was like, well, what if what if something happens and they remove the reserve? So, I don't know. But he talked about the receivership and stakeholders, and he has to do what's in their best interest, and I don't know who the stakeholders are of the receivership, cause,
Probably the employees, they're still
Oh,
$2
yeah.
million,
Public
over $2 million
retirement,
in.
yeah,
I mean, there's lawsuits for some of that money.
yeah.
Litigation.
Yeah, I was thinking it would be like, were there any like silent investors that held stake in the hospital?
No, I guess with all that, again, Doc, thank you for being here, thank you for traveling. If there's no more questions of him, at this next point, I guess council has to make a decision, with 2 days, are we even interested in putting a bid on the hospital, right? And if we do go that direction, then I would think we'd have to go in executive to talk about kind of amounts and different things like that, correct me if I'm wrong, but, that's a decision council has to make first and foremost. You know, we looked at that many directions, many ways, opportunities, so. What's your thoughts on that?
I'd love for the hospital to be open, but I can't, I'm not a fan of, buying it. When we talked last time, it was, you know, dealing with having something in place, a signed contract. And we majority voted last time to proceed with the purchase, and next day, we didn't have an agreement anymore, and that was the whole point, was we're not gonna do it unless we have that. Initially, I wanted the ER to be open, but everyone I talked to said, you're the first one that said, you know, maybe year 3 or something, most of the other ones said, no ER. That's cause doesn't make money.
Well, I'd say when I found out the auction was only 2 days and we had, Dr. Fisher coming up here, I was disappointed because we had really no time to do any due diligence and looking at leases and contracts if we were moving forward with definitely going to be a bidder. And then if we were awarded the bid, who knows? I mean, like you said, everybody hits the last 2 hours, right? That's when everybody comes out of the woodwork and sees where it's at, kind of thing, so.
But like you said, you know, we buy it and Corey needs more space than what they wanna give up, I mean, then we're buying it for, I mean.
Well, to me, the hospital's first, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
our space would come in second,
It's already said
by
that
far, right,
we don't have space in there.
Buying it for the community.
right, is one, definitely the first goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be 30.
Yeah, it's a 2-dayer.
I thought it was 30 day too.
I will throw it out there.
Oh, no, it's on there, Justin, the time left to bid.
Did it?
Yeah.
We're open to signing a contract, an operations management contract with the timeline that we outlined here. The opening of the ER is only contingent on, reinstatement of the hospital license. So, and that happens over, 3 to 6 months, which is enough time for the rural emergency hospital to be, designation to be granted as well. So, especially since you've held critical access designation in the past, stepping over to the rural emergency hospital is actually easier to obtain than the critical access designation. So, the rural emergency hospital, stipend is the only thing that saves this hospital from, it makes it a viable entity as opposed to a complete loss, like a charity, as far as the service. So, but yeah, we would be open to signing that if you guys need that in hand.
1 day, 15 hours, 54 minutes.
2-dayer.
Lot to think about.
See, we're still back to, it was gonna be, I'm rounding off.
If the town can buy it for 250 or below, you guys stole it. And no private citizen's gonna be able to buy it, because the taxes will be, who knows? I mean, I looked up Leon Nyhart's old house, her taxes on that's like 5,000 square foot, 24 grand a year. Imagine what the taxes on a 100,000 square foot building for a private citizens would be. That'd be almost what you paid for. But you guys, being the government entity, you don't have to pay the tax on your building, is that true?
We pay a portion, we pay the Hicks lights tax,
Gotcha.
but not a full real estate tax.
That's what's gonna keep the private sector out of buying the hospital is the taxes, it's not the price. I mean, as you guys know, 250 grand's probably, you can't buy the ground for that. But then if you just wait though, you might end up with it for free, but then you might not, so it's like, gosh.
Well, I'll be honest, I had a phone call, I've had people say they wanna buy it. They were looking at other opportunities for the building, but I said our goal was to, in one way, shape, or form, try to get our
Get
hospital back.
medical and
Right. And then with thinking of all that, I said, just saying if, just throwing this out there, but if the village isn't able or deciding upon purchasing, would you be willing to partner with another entity to kind of do the same thing you're doing now with us? I mean, a property developer kind of thing. Do you work with other cities when you buy these facilities, or have you worked with other entities too, private?
We have
Property developers.
investors, if we buy a hospital, if we buy a property outright, this is with more due diligence though.
I meant if, to lease from somebody else. Right now, you're saying if we buy it, right, you would lease from us.
Yeah.
If we didn't get it, would you be willing to lease with another?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's,
I mean, so looking at that other side makes sense.
Yeah, it's just, do they have the same intentions?
Right.
And then also, are they another management group? So who might try to open up another acute care facility, and it's just gonna, circle the drain, again. Yeah, no,
I came here about Charlie's, I didn't even know this was happening, just so you guys know. But what you're saying, if I would buy it, would you lease it from me and then I give to the town of Hicksville square footage for them, because it's huge, the building's huge. And then I give to Hicksville, a square footage they can put all their offices in. If I
Yeah,
would buy it, would you lease from me and I give however 27,000 square foot of your
I
building
mean,
too.
if I only have to pay $250,000 for it, I'd buy it too.
Right.
But I know, that's, I'm not exaggerating, like, I would buy it for $250,000, but I don't, from what Philip said, the reserve on it, I don't know if they're gonna remove it or not, and I think it's around the $2 million
Gotcha, okay,
mark.
alright.
That's what he led me to believe, but he's an auction house,
Right.
so.
I'm not trying to get in, I'm just trying to get a win-win for everybody.
But that was kind of my question, if another entrepreneur or business development team came in, would they be willing to release, or work with you?
So we've got a development arm as well, like we have several large developments, it's like, but it's just the lack of due diligence with this impending, doom fire suppression. There's a couple of things that doom things, the fire suppression, the electrical, and HVAC.
We've had an HVAC audit, and there's a decent amount of money.
$167,000.
That's not even the worst. Like, I've
Well,
seen-
no,
yeah,
I'm saying, it's still something we'd be looking at.
Some
Yeah.
some recommended roof repairs, 20-some thousand,
Yeah, total it was
200,000.
about 183,000.
Well, for HVAC and roof, or just?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Combined,
Yeah, so that's not terrible for
No.
what you get.
but the roof was gonna be a Band-Aid kind of, it was a 3 to 5 year fix.
Oh, yeah.
So we still have some major expenses coming up. And I'm not opposed to what you're presenting at all. But
You guys do like
we still
metal
gotta
roofing?
pay.
Do they do metal roofing in Ohio?
Pretty flat, I think.
Yeah.
But most of that's that rubber roof, it's a flat roof, yeah.
If it didn't have a reserve on it, I'd be more excited.
We already know we're gonna get-
What happens if it doesn't sell?
Have another
I-
option?
I asked the Bradley company before it went to auction, like, if it doesn't sell, what happens? And he said it could go to auction, which it is, or it would go to another receivership and they would try to market it.
I see.
Or they would try to move it, so if it doesn't sell at auction, it's a great question. Nobody really knows.
What about like a creative solution? Right, like giving it to us to turn around, like get an active hospital license with some sort of
Do at least own, back from that.
Oh, yeah,
I will put my
kinda.
kids to bed, my wife's ready to kill me.
yeah, kinda like a creative option, like lease to own, let us actually make it do what it's intended to do, and then, I don't know. Instead of putting the burden up front on,
They have to be
everyone.
easiest to work with, I can tell you that.
Kind of quiet on that stuff.
you know.
But, with that all being said, there's been some great points and great conversation on it. There's a lot to think about, but we're in kind of the critical time of, if we're motioning to bid, we need to do it now and put that on the table. And my thought was if we went ahead with that option, we would definitely need to set a limit of how much we would be willing to pay. My thought on that, and I didn't know there was a minimum, a ceiling on this, but a reserve. But if were able to get a lot less than what we were initially offered, then we can put some of that money towards the infrastructure improvements and make it a more viable structure and, kind of thing like that. That's the only thing I was gonna think. So, at the end of the day, it's up to you guys.
If my group buys it, would we have access to the funds that are set aside for infrastructure improvement for the hospital?
That's a
How
state
much is in
question.
our revolving loan?
We don't have that kind of money.
Well, no, but for improvements, we would have,
$500,000? Is that right?
Yeah.
Job creation.
right,
This is the limit on each loan.
How much do we have
Just give them
available?
all money.
Well, no, I get that, but we need to use up some of that money and no one's asking for it, and there's gotta be like, Erica's creative, right? CIC and,
But back to your question, that's a state question. I mean, we changed the structure of the original gift from pool to possibly this purchase to be utilized. They didn't say no to it, but they would have to come and see the whole package and what we were doing and how we were doing it with, cause we said partnering with a hospital, right? And they want a rural healthcare up here that,
are you familiar
right.
with what he's referring to, the grant money?
Yes.
Okay.
No, but yeah, that's when, we reapproached him with that, Corey, and, they weren't objective to it. But
That's
They
like
just
taking
can't say,
candy.
yeah, go ahead and use it wherever you want, you know.
Yeah, that's
go
like
build it.
taking candy from a baby, you know, you'll be looked at real sideways if you say no to a hospital, but instead you wanna fund a pool.
Right.
I'm just, you know, saying it out loud.
So. Yeah, I mean.
Does it cost us to sign up to bid? I mean, is there a fee to join?
It's, you have to put $10,000 down, which we can put on a credit
Non-refundable.
card. You can put a credit
It's
card
a
in there.
hold.
It's just a hold.
Okay.
As a whole.
So like if you win the bid and then we back out, they keep our money. So I got it, you know, I created an account, we're to the point to where we need to put the hold on there, but I haven't went that far until you guys say, yep, let's do it. Or if you say we're not gonna do it, then we just don't finish out the registration on it.
I think we
There's too many
should.
unknowns on it.
I really do. I think the town needs a hospital, and, with Josh's, management, I think.
Are you making a motion? Is that what
I'd like to make a motion, yeah, to bid.
Well, do we need to set an amount before?
Well, that would have to be executive, we can't do that in open
Well, I
session.
know, but
But,
do we do that before we vote, is what I'm saying.
how's that work? What would we do? I've never done this before.
Well, if we vote, we're moving ahead, and it doesn't matter what.
I would say you have to set the limit.
Yeah, I was gonna
Otherwise,
say.
So
if he says make a motion for 250,000, yeah, but if he's saying 2.25 million.
5 million.
No.
So, but if you wanna go in executive to talk about a ceiling, or we can do that. And if we can come to an agreement, then come back in and go the other way. Right?
Make a motion, we go into executive
He was on the
session
Property.
to discuss property,
Yeah,
purchase
usually
of land.
reserve's not gonna come off.
Eric, are there any seconds?
Second.
Roll call.
Miller,
Yes.
Yes.
Bassett,
Yep.
Tanya,
Yes.
Egley,
Yes.
Sirdike.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill.
Thank you.
Yeah.